Scott "Phone Guy" Cawthon was born in Bell County, Texas on June 4th, 1978. He graduated from the Art Institute of Houston, blah blah blah, boring part over, let's discuss his work. Like anything related to this man, Scott's first game is a bit of a mystery. Not because we don't know what it is, but rather because of how Scott himself classifies it. In an interview with ClickTeam in November 2014, Scott says his first attempt at a game featured a blob he drew himself and a series of library graphics, although he later said he considered it more of a test than anything worthy of being called a game. As someone whose first project is a black screen with a dialogue box so far, I'd say having something with shapes and colors counts as a game, but I digress. Scott then goes on to say that he believes his first official game is Legacy of Flan, an RPG where the Flan species is, checks notes, facing a genocide, and the Flan you play as is part of the last surviving Flan village. I'm not even joking, like, the Flan even have slurs used against them canonically. It was 2003, so I'm not sure what I was expecting, but like, come on Scott, you have enough controversies to your name. Annihilation of Flan aside, his actual first recognized game was in 1994 and was called Doofus. The game is about a dinosaur who keeps using return to sender on Grok's evil, and yes, evil is a noun in this instance. Grok gets tired of this and creates Miaton and Prochan to destroy Doofus. After that, Scott's early games were heavily influenced and based on his Christian beliefs. Games like Pilgrim's Progress, which was based on the John Bunyan allegory of the same name, as well as Noah's Ark. One of Scott's popular titles is The Desolate Hope, which is actually one of the first examples I could find of Scott's work that sparked controversy. This was due to a message at the end of the game saying something to the effect of, "This game is dedicated to the children who never saw childhood." Many people thought this to be a deliberate connection to his pro-life views, and while he does have those views, which we'll dive more into later, this game was specifically meant to be dedicated to children who lost their life in general. Whether it be from a miscarriage, an accident in early childhood, or what have you, this game was meant for them. It was made in memory of his friends and family's children, some who die young. Controversy aside, games of that genre were not helping Scott make ends meet, so he decided to branch out into other categories. For anyone who hasn't been privy to Scott Cawthon's career before Five Nights at Freddy's, the earliest game they might know from him is Chipper and Sons Lumber Co. They may have heard about it from another video essay about FNAF and how Chipper and Sons was the final catalyst for Scott to make what many consider to be his magnum opus. The game is pretty simple, requiring Tyke, son of Chipper, to collect materials and complete objectives. Upon its release in 2013, it was ridiculed for the characters being eerie and robotic, resembling Chuck E. Cheese-style animatronics. Although it receives praise now after being re-released on Game Jolt, it was an extremely low point for Scott and his game design career. Up to this point, most of his money through his games came from ad revenue, and it wasn't much more than $50 a month. In the end, though, he vowed to make something, quote, much scarier than that. And that one decision has set him for life. In 2014, Scott released the first Five Nights at Freddy's game. This came out when I was in 5th grade, and it was all anyone could talk about. Kids were making up playground games to mimic it, which is what really led me to look at the series online. I didn't get to have a blind play experience. I couldn't afford the games, and I kinda knew it was something my parents wouldn't want their 10-year-old to look at, but I was hooked. Not only was it scary, for a 10-year-old anyway, but it had mystery, lore, it had secrets to discover, and I wanted nothing more than to pick it apart. It was, all things considered, a simplistic game. Your character can't move, most of the visuals are PNGs with static filters that just have a panning animation, and the sound effects are mostly from a stock library, with the biggest exception being the phone guy voice lines that Scott recorded himself.
Hello? Hello?
The game was successful though, in large part due to YouTubers like Markiplier, Jacksepticeye, Dawko, and MatPat, the retired host of Game Theory, bringing it into the public eye. Outside of the big names too, smaller YouTubers were making theories on the story of the 5 missing children, and who did the bite of 87 that phone guy mentioned. Even the events and their RNG rates were found out pretty quickly thanks to some people digging through the game files. This game was torn apart piece by adoring fans, and it quickly gained a cult following. Fans on every corner of the internet made fan art, some of which got their own cult followings that still influence design choices for current fans today. This was the big break that Scott needed, and it only got bigger from there. After a decade of this franchise, here are the tallies. There are 19 documented video games, 29 released books, 1 released film and a sequel confirmed, and hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of merch between brand deals and YouTuber crossovers. That's not even mentioning the fan creations like stories, comics, fan games. It's astounding. The lore is... It is clearly far removed from the original plan Scott likely had of just some missing kids and a deranged lunatic shoving their bodies into suits. Now it's become complex and intertwining. Honestly, the best representation of how insane this is the fan-made English Willy saga, a series of Tumblr roleplay posts about Springtrap, affectionately called English Willy, and the shenanigans that he and the underpaid workers got up to before the iconic FNAF 3 fire happened. And that only covers FNAF 1 through 3. It doesn't touch the Remnant and Soul Juice, the illusion discs, the robots being confused for humans, and the other insanity that's come from the series since. FNAF evolved from a paranormal murder mystery to full-on sci-fi fantasy, with a sprinkle of horror for the OG fans. In the end, Scott's career was destined to come to a close. Before FNAF hit being a decade old, Scott was booted from his own game community, once again for his personal beliefs. Most of the backlash was due to his substantial donations to Republican Party members, and specifically Donald Trump. The backlash was in large part due to the number of LGBTQ+ people in his fanbase, though there were other contributing factors such as past controversies related to people he's worked with. Despite this backlash, Scott took it in stride, saying, "If people think I'm doing more harm than good now, then maybe it's better that I get cancelled and retire. I would accept that. I have always loved and will continue to love this community and this fanbase, even if someday it doesn't include me anymore." Scott did say during all this that he would be passing the torch along to another to continue the franchise, and with the games he already has. Steel Wool, responsible for Help Wanted VR, Security Breach, the Ruin DLC, and Help Wanted 2, have been continuing the Five Nights at Freddy's storyline, ending the Afton era and bringing the Vanny era into full swing. They've already teased a new game that's supposed to take us far into the past of Fazbear's history that has fans nervous and excited for the direction of the franchise. Blumhouse Productions has been working with Scott and his whimsies in terms of the FNAF movies, which has its own interesting lore emerging. So Scott is pretty much retired, free to live off the royalties of his IP. I can't deny that I look up to Scott, and his creativity. I love what he's created. I love the art and style of FNAF through the years. I literally grew up with this fan base since I was 10 years old. I'm 20 now, and still addicted to all things FNAF. This franchise has had such an impact on me and so many others for various reasons. It's stayed in the hearts of many over the years. Imagine seeing something you created become so beloved by the world that people are still picking apart the details 10 years after its release. That's beautiful. If I could do it all over again, I would. I'd love to fall in love with FNAF all over again and find the joy of puzzling together an insane story and making memories that will last me a lifetime. Hell, I switched majors because of you and Steel Wool after Security Breach. I saw how ambitious it was and how amazing Help Wanted was, and I thought, graphic design, I want to make games for a living. If I can touch the lives of even a fraction of the amount you have through my games, it will all be worth it. So again, thank you, Scott Cawthon, for 10 insane years. I have way too much knowledge about this to be any semblance of normal about it. If you show me any screenshot from the games, I can tell you with startling accuracy not only which game it's from, but also what in-universe location it's in. FNAF 1, Office. Simple as that. Definitely from the FNAF 1 game too. You can tell because it's not very 3D. The desk isn't straight across. It has a panning sort of feel to it. And the light is a dead giveaway. If this were the VR version, first of all, you wouldn't have this perspective. You'd be a lot closer to the desk, but it also wouldn't be this flat. Shoot. Okay. I want to say that this is sister location. We'll come back to this one. I kind of want to say that this is FNAF 2 because of the hanging stars and the piping. And also just like the texture on the wall. Other games do have a similar style. Most of the core games, the earlier ones, were made in Click Team and with very little differentiation between the art style. Unlike the later games, it does make it a little more difficult to tell them apart when you're zoomed in. But I'm gonna go with FNAF 2 on that one. Ooh, shoot. I'm pretty sure this is FNAF 3. There's arcade games that you can play in FNAF 3. Sometimes it's after you die, sometimes you have to unlock them. And I think this is the one where you're on stage in Fredbear's Family Diner. And this is FNAF 4. That is Chica's hallway, specifically. You can tell because of the angle that the hallway is going. Alright, let's go back to the clock. There's a couple games that this could be. It could be FNAF World, but I can't remember what screen it would be, but it does have a similar blue. It could be Pizza Sim. It could be Sister Location. I'm gonna go with Pizza Sim on this one.